Can you hear me? Drop it in the comments if you can hear me okay, please. Otherwise, we'll get started. So today we're talking about how to hem a lace dress. It's a little hemming series, isn't it? The other day we did another hemming of a dress. I hope you all are having a beautiful day. So today, all right, so we'll just set this right here. So any latecomers will know what we're doing. This is the dress we're gonna hem. And I wanted to talk about not just how we hem it, but I wanna talk about the fitting room experience as well. Let me know in the comments, in the chat, please. Can you hear me okay? Hello, Nancy. It's great to have you. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, so you can see that we've got some pins going through multiple layers here. And I want to talk about the way we schedule our fittings for hemming, the way we mark the hems, and let's see. Thank you, Nancy. You can hear me. Hi, Marcus. Welcome. And then I want to talk about how we decide how to hem. All right. So basically, hemming is done over a series of appointments. I don't try to get all the hemming done in one appointment. Sometimes you can get the marking and everything you need, and the next time they come in, it's just done. Sometimes you can. But sometimes you can't. When you've got multiple layers and some of the inner layers add a lot of extra body, and maybe it's a situation where the inner layers are literally standing up on the floor, like they really need to be trimmed off. We're talking about a crinoline or a petticoat or a stiff horsehair, or a little bit of can tulle in there. If that is like literally standing up on the floor a little bit and pushing out, you can't mark the hem like that. So you need to go ahead and get those under layers hemmed first. So I'm going to kind of sketch that for you a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. This one, we can get all the hemming done in one whack, okay? So we've got the pins going through these two layers. It's nothing overwhelming at all, right? But what I'm talking about is if you have a dress, get you nice and close so you guys can see. I've gotten lots of feedback that you guys want more information about the fitting room experience and how I pin and all that. So that's why I wanted to discuss it just a little bit before I get into this. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to adjust my tripod and she is screwed down tight here. All right, here we go. So if you're looking at a dress, the bride is kind of standing in it and it's like this, and you've got, it's like crunched up. It's literally like coming up. We literally see it do this, okay? And it's just, you've got a little bit of crunching and bunching going on in here. But it's pretty much sitting on the floor, getting pushed up, okay? We can't have that. So you gotta have the skirt kind of raised up. Just have her kind of hold on to it. Her little mittens here. Have her hold on to the skirt. All right. so that you can get access to this crinoline layer. She's got to have her shoes on, and you're just going to kind of pull it down nice and straight and swing it back to where you're touching the floor. And when you do that, you're going to put a safety pin in there, or you can even just, sometimes I measure. I'll say, how tall are you? You know, the dresses, most of them are made for 5'10". So if she's 5'2", you can usually safely cut off or raise the crinoline depending on the case. Sometimes if you're hemming a lot and you cut off the bottom, you just cut off the beefiest part of the foundational support that dress needs. And that could be a problem. So you might want to distribute your shortening where you shorten it maybe by 4 inches up through here and then 4 inches at the bottom to distribute that so that you still keep that same silhouette, the same amount of support that was intended, that's needed for this outer layer, however heavy it may be. So you've got these things to think about, but you can safely do the math usually just for the crinoline and say, well, if she's 5'2", she's wearing flats, you know, we're going to lose about 8 inches on this layer. Or you could say she's 5'2", she's wearing 3 foot, 3-inch heels. That gets her to 5'5", so you're hemming off 5 inches, that kind of thing, okay? So this is marked at a fitting when I'm still working on the bodice of her dress, okay? You have to get the bodice situated before you can really get a good reading on the hem. That is a very common mistake that I hear. Seamstresses will complain that they feel pressured sometimes by the bridal salons to only have 1 or 2 fittings. And so they mark, you know, how much this needs to be brought in up here and in the hips and all that. And then they put the pin in at the same time, all of the layers. Well, when you tighten this, the dress is going to draw up. So it's going to end up being too short if you trust your pin in that situation. So we always get all of this established first. And at this fitting, when we're marking how much we're bringing this in, we can go ahead and do this. This will be fine because it's just fine for the crinoline layer to be more at the top of the foot when you're done hemming, okay? That way she can walk around a little bit or kick her shoes off, and that support is not going to be bunching on the floor. Once you get all of this hemmed, that's when you're ready to go ahead. You've got your top done, you've got your crinoline done. That's when you're ready to go ahead and mark the hem to the floor, okay? So that would get you to this point in the hemming process. Again, this dress is not built like this dress. I'm just sketching this other dress so it gives you a broader understanding for the different silhouettes, okay? So with this, we just pin straight through the layers because there's no extra body being given with this, all right? So that means what we need to do is we need to separate out these pins. And this is what I do. I'm just going to transfer that. And then I'm going to repin this in the exact same spot. Now they're separated, okay? And I'm going to do that a few times. So you can mark the center front of the dress, but you also want to come down the princess seams of the skirt or just in front of the both legs before you get to the side seam. And you want to mark those. I don't know what I'm just knocking this over with. You want to mark those as well. You can physically mark them with pins, or you can just test the length. So you're putting a pin in the middle, you're coming out a couple feet each way, test it to the floor, and if you see it's the same length, you know, from the hem edge to where your pin would be, you don't have to put more pins in there. So some of our dresses are just going to have one center front. That just means she has equal length legs, which is not all that common, really. Sometimes you need a whole series of pins. So we just go by that. Well, there's a saying, trust your pins. And however we pinned it, we know it's going to be okay on the cutting table. All right, so I showed you guys last week the mirror pinning, and that's where you align your side seams. You have tension on the dress because it's hooked there at the wall. So you can kind of pull on the dress. Shopping on Champagne is here. Hello. It's so great to have you. Let me adjust this angle here so you guys can see what I'm doing. All right. So to mirror pin, you are lining up your side seams of the skirt, kind of putting the back of the skirt to the left, and the center front of the skirt is all the way over here at the right. This is your center front pin. And again, if you've got a couple of pins, you can now see if there's a difference. And there is a little bit of a difference for this girl, okay? So when you see that much of a difference plus the extra pins, that lets you know you're not mirror pinning with the skirt. Isn't that nice to know? So last week we were looking at the mirror pins, and that is such a helpful lesson. I said last week, I think it was Monday. This week has several weeks in it. I don't know if it's feeling that way to you or not, but that's how it's feeling to me. We've got more than we bargained for this week. All right, so we're also going to look at the hem allowance here that we have. This bride is a lower budget bride, which is fine and great. So we're actually going to be swapping out. This is going to be a narrowed rolled hem when we hem it instead of the cover stitch. Okay, it's a cover stitch right now. It's a stretch stitch. But the narrow rolled hem is a stretch stitch as well. All right, so with this, I'm literally just going to cut away everything that we don't need for the hemming allowance. Okay, so I'm going to get to about here at my side seam. All right, now I'm going to swing up just a little bit because this knit really is going to roll into that surged hem edge. So we actually do need a little bit of hem allowance for the surged hem edge. All right, now we're going to come up to almost this pin. You can see I'm using very technical terminology for my measuring, huh? All right, almost this pin. And then we're going to coast right back down to match what we did on the other side to where we're cutting right above this cover stitch. Here we go. And we're landing the plane. There we go. That's that. Now, when it comes to a lace hem, I get asked about this all the time. How are we going to keep this pretty edge, but it needs to be this short? You can actually see where this is doubled up. So this is actually a trim that matches this lace fabric that's just been appliqued on that edge. So that's good. If you don't have that, and this is like a lace that's just woven all the way to the edge, and it has a prettier swing edge or whatever, then what you do is you identify a picture within the lace that you can make an applique. So you would just cut along a picture and just make sure that you repeat that same picture as you cut to form your applique. And then I'll show you what we'll do with the applique, okay? So we're not gonna cut it off forever. I like to tell my brides when they ask, how are we gonna do this so that we don't ruin the hem? I say, well, we remove the applique temporarily. I make sure to say that word because we don't need panic attacks up in here. I should like have that cross stitched on the wall. No panic attacks up in here. So a lot of that is avoided by the language that we use for sure. And this is how I just separate that piece out. So I'm gonna go from side seam to side seam. Sometimes you gotta go quite a bit behind the side seam to taper in, but this hem is not, it's not needing much of a hem. You saw how very little I cut off. So we don't need a lot of that taper time. So let's go about this far behind. And then when we attach it, we can just swing up. You see that? All right, so let's make some tracks. The razor, in my humble opinion, is the best way to really make some tracks with removing this. And everybody's different. You might prefer a seam ripper, but this is just so fast. The beauty also of using a razor, people are like, oh no, what if you cut the fabric? Hello. We are cutting the fabric. This is going to end up in the trash can or rolled up for a little scrap for later or something. So I'm really not concerned. If I was concerned, I would just go a little bit more slowly. I'd have it a little closer to my face, making sure I'm not, you know, doing anything too damaging there. And I usually like to angle the blade toward whichever fabric I care the least about. So if this fabric was very delicate and precious, this trim, I would make sure that my razor was pointed toward the skirt. I'm hitting kind of on the middle here because this trim is actually pretty thick and strong. All right, so we're gonna get to the side seam. We're almost there, we're at the center. See how fast this is. Sometimes you hit a stubborn spot and you just kind of pounce on it a little bit. Everybody in the comments, please drop a question. When I get to the side seam, I'm going to look at your comments real quick. And it can be just about anything sewing oriented, and I'm happy to help. Put those comments in there. If you don't have any questions or comments about what we're doing, drop a comment letting me know where you are from. Where are you hanging out today? And are you sewing? Is this a sew with me today? Whoop, I went a little past that side seam. All right, so we're about ready to cut. I'm going to read your questions real quick. Let's see. Victoria, welcome back. Let's see, Victoria, is this the dress or a piece that was sewn onto the dress for it to come off like that? It's a trim they sewed. So they've serged the edge of this lace. That lets me know that this lace is probably going to fray pretty badly. Like this cording is probably going to come loose pretty quick. So we'll want to serge the edge as well. But it's literally just this trim that they've sewn on the edge. And I would say 85–90% of the time when we're hemming a dress, it is just a trim on the edge. People think it's all one because it's sewn together so well and it matches, but it is a trim. Sometimes it's not. All right, so this time I'm going to cut not with a hem allowance because we want the skirt to probably end about here and then this drop down. So I'm actually gonna cut right above here so that we can add the trim to it. Let's see. Emily, I'm replacing a 22-inch zipper from South Carolina. Let's see. Oh, goodness, Kiona. She has a baby lock. She's working with a lot of beaded dress material. What needle do you suggest would work best to go over the sequins and beads without taking it out by hand? I would not run beads through an overlocker. I'm sorry. I know that's not the answer you want, but you need to stretch the hem edge out over, just get a 2x4 and a hammer, and you literally smash those beads. Make sure all those beads are smashed. And then to remove sequins, the reason why you smash the beads, you want them gone, but you don't want to interrupt the stitch. Because once you interrupt the stitch, all the other beads are going to come loose, right? So here you've got your beads. All right, and you've got your thread going through them, right? So if you need to get rid of this guy, you don't want to just cut this thread because then this guy's going to fall off, right? So you smash him and then your thread is not interrupted. Okay, so you smash the bead. And then as far as sequins, same thing, but even worse. The sequins are put on with, if you look at the underside, it's a chain stitch, which means you pull on this thread and it's, okay, bad news. So that means if you need to get rid of some sequins, let's just say you need to get rid of this sequin, okay, this sequin, you're going to cut right here to the circle, right here to the circle, okay, and you're going to slip that half sequin out and slip that half sequin out, and then your thread is not interrupted. Oh, thank you, Victoria. She said you can draw so good. I feel like, obviously this is not artistry. I do love to paint and draw, but I do feel like my line drawings are fairly detailed to kind of illustrate what we're talking about. And I am very grateful that I'm able to kind of interpret what I'm thinking into a sketch, because it would be so hard to teach, honestly, without being able to do that. So I am very, very grateful for that. My dad was an artist, so I kind of got that from him. And then, fun fact, I actually had a art scholarship when I went to college. So I thought I wanted to be an artist. This is for you creatives out there. I know seamstresses are creative. Don't be scared. I was always so scared as a kid because I was like, oh no, I'm an artist. I'm going to be poor. Like, literally, as a child, I was stressed about my future income potential because I knew I was artistic. I was overwhelmed as a child. But so anyways, yes, I count myself so blessed. I'm so grateful that I'm able to do a job that has so much creativity involved. And can make a living with it. Guys, we are living in I know it's hard times out there. The world is crazy, but this is the best time, I feel like, to be a creative and an artistic person and be able to make a living with it. So if any of you are scared, don't be. I'm happy to help you learn how to make money with being creative. So, and you don't have to necessarily draw or paint or dance or photography or all the other genres. You don't necessarily have to do that, but sewing in itself is an art form and you can make a good living with it. So here's your inspiration for the day. I did get an email. I've mentioned in the last couple calls, I got an email last week. I was so happy to see We gained yet another six-figure seamstress in the community. And she's done nothing but learn literally off of like YouTube and online courses and practicing her craft. And she's living the dream. So, all right. So basically what I'm going to do here, this is what I call my laser eye. It's such a funny name, but I picture it from here. I picture my cut going to the pin, okay? And then I just trust that visualization. I have no other way of describing it. Call it my laser eye. It's like picturing a laser making this line for you, okay? And then when I'm cutting, I'm tracking the distance from the hem edge to where I'm cutting, okay? So I'm not looking necessarily at where I'm cutting. I'm bouncing back and forth to make sure that this distance is tapering beautifully, okay? So here we go. I'm just gonna cut it like this. And remember, this is floor length. So I'm going above the pin because we're gonna add the trim to it. That's gonna drop down a little bit to make that a shade longer than floor length. That's what the girls like. So in my mind, I'm drawing this right here, okay? Now we gotta go to this third pin, which is different. That's normal, one leg longer than the other. And we're going back to this. And at this side seam, there was only about 1 inch, okay? So that's what we're gonna do with our laser eye. Gonna draw with our mind, draw this 1 inch and then quickly taper off. All right, so next, I'm not gonna do the serger on the live. How annoying would that be? Okay, so now we need to swing this up. Swing that up to that side seam. Lay that flat. Here we go. We're gonna pin this. And how we pin it is the way that we're going to do our free motion stitching. I have entire playlists, guys, on how to do the free motion stitch that's required for putting this back on. Okay, so I kind of moved down like 4 or 5 inches, put a pin, and then I'm gonna put this middle pin in. I don't wanna put the pins too close as I work my way across because it can kind of go like this, right? So we want to like swing it a little distance away so we know it's nice and smooth. Set that pin and then go back and set your pins intermediate. You guys drop questions in the comment section, any question you have about sewing, because when I reach to the end of this, I'm going to answer your questions before I go, okay? And if you don't have a question, still hang on because somebody might have a question that you never thought of, and it might be a breakthrough light bulb moment for you. And if you're new here, welcome. I do live streams mostly every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes I can't, but for the most part, that's my schedule. If I can't do it, I'll do a little community post to let you guys know. But I do that, and I upload long form videos as well. And I've got all kinds of courses and freebies for you. Go to bridalsewing.com for more information about that, to join the newsletter, bridalsewing.com. I even have a products page there that lists all the different sewing products that I use. You'll love that if you're a sewing enthusiast. great to have you. Hit subscribe so you don't lose track of me. All right, so here's our hem edge. It's all fully restored. So we're going to serge this edge, and we're going to do the free motion stitch down on this edge, and then she'll be ready for her bustle. Let me check and see if you guys have any questions. Let's see. Laura, first time here. It's so great having you. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't lose track of me, okay? And then let's see, Victoria, how would you cut that dress to shorten it if the applique wasn't there? If you want to watch the replay, I do get into that, but I'll still answer your question here. I just may have spent a little more time in the beginning about it. But I would find a picture in the lace and cut around that picture to create my own applique, and just make sure that I repeat the same exact boundaries as the picture repeats, okay? So I would cut that free and then move it up however much I need to. So it does happen, like I was saying, 10, 15% of the time. It's not a separate trim piece, but most of the time it is. All right, well, you guys have a lovely day. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a beautiful weekend. We'll see you here Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. And we'll be getting into something else. It's bridal sewing. Take care, guys. Bye.